Hello everyone, and welcome to my video. My name is Sana, and I have 9 years of experience in visual graphics and color grading. My goal to make this course was to ease the path for people who want to become colorists. I compiled years of information into a few hours for you. I will teach you several methods of doing one thing. For example, I will teach you many methods to fix white balance of your videos. I will teach you a couple of ways to create contrast, not just one. And at the end of my course, I'm also giving you my personal hyperlearner method, which will enable you to squeeze 3 to 5 years of learning into 6 to 12 months. This is not just big talk. Back then, when I was learning color grading, I used to practice every single day. I had the formula that worked wonders for me. And I'm going to give you my method so that you can become a full-fledged colorist in no time. I call myself a lifelong learner. So if you enroll in my course, you're not just going to be getting a few hours of study. I will be updating my course very regularly. I promise you, I will make you into a full-fledged colorist and you will become successful. I'm also teaching you my own marketing methods, the ways that I use to get projects and students. So I'm giving you everything in one course. I'm not just teaching you color grading and then leaving you out there to figure things out yourself. I will hold your hand every step of the way. Things don't stop over here. I'm also available within 24 hours if you have any questions. I have been reaching out to my recent students to make sure that they're learning everything correctly. And if you have any questions, I promise I will get back to you within 24 hours with an answer. So, without any further delay, let's jumpstart your learning today. I will see you inside the course. Before we dive into the content of the course, there are a couple of important announcements that I want to make. The first one is that I'm adding a section that is going to teach you how to leverage AI technology to your advantage. This is an amazing development that has helped me as a designer and a colorist because it cuts down my time by half. How does it do that? Well, I come up with ideas of my own and I leverage them through AI to find out when I should post which idea as a video on my Instagram. That gives me leverage over the algorithm, my videos perform better, and I can also reach out to my target audience in a better way. I also use AI to find out which videos to use to run ads. It also helps me write captions and come up with my monthly calendar for my videos. This way, I use AI's technology and combine it with my own research of the ongoing trends in the coloring world, and I'm able to come up with top-notch content that stays above the trend, and I'm able to reach out to more people. The other important information that I want to give you is that almost at the end of every section, I'm giving you tips and tricks to make full use of that particular section. I will give you information as to how you can leverage all of the knowledge you've learned in that section and make the best use of it. I will be telling you how often you need to practice it and how you can combine one section with the knowledge of another and keep building on your knowledge to become a full-fledged colorist. So I hope this information helps you, and I'm looking forward to your thoughts. Welcome to this section where I will be building your knowledge for color grading and video editing. We will be discussing different things that make up our video edits as well as help us in our color grading. I will be talking about different things like bit depth, bit rate, log, Rec 709, and other things. But if you are already familiar with the basics of color grading and video editing, you can jump to the section that starts with white balance. This course caters to beginners, intermediates, and advanced people. Based on your knowledge of video editing and color grading, you can pick the section you want to start with. Let me know if you have any questions, and I promise I'll get back to you within 24 hours. See you in the next lesson.
Skip this section and follow all of the other things that I'm going to teach you in the course. I just wanted to run all of these things by you before I dive into the first session and we start getting into the nitty-gritties of color grading. So let's get started. Alright, here in this lesson, we're going to talk about starting DaVinci Resolve. So when you click on the DaVinci Resolve icon on your desktop or PC or whichever system you're using, this is the first screen that's going to pop up. You'll see a lot of options. If you have created any projects, they're going to show up over here. Every thumbnail is one single project that you have worked on. If you double click on it, it's going to take you inside that project. Then you have different options over here called export, import, and everything else. We're going to go into those details later on. We're going to click new project to create a new project for us. So I'm going to click new project. It's going to ask me to name the project. So I'm going to call it color grading course project. And then I'm going to click create. All right. In this lesson, we're going to learn about different pages that DaVinci Resolve has and what function each page is going to offer you when you're working in the software. First, we have the media page. You can think of it as the librarian. This is where you import and organize all of your footage. Then we have the cut page. Think of it as the speed editor. We use this page for quick edits, like fast food film cutting. After that, we have the edit page. This is the director, which has full control over everything. And this is where you're going to make detailed timeline edits. Next, you have Fusion. Think of it as the wizard. This is where a lot of magic happens in terms of VFX and motion graphics. After that, we have the color page. This is the colorist of the project, the star of the show. This is your color grading playground. After that, you have Fairlight, which is the sound engineer. This is the page where your audio comes alive. And lastly, you have the deliver page. This is like the distributor. It exports your masterpiece to the world. You don't have to master every room right now. Just know who lives where and what they do. And don't worry, we'll spend most of our time hanging out with the colorist. They're the diva of this studio, and I'll teach you how everything works when it comes to color grading. In this lesson, we're going to talk about resolution, frame rate, and color space. We're going to start with resolution. What is resolution? Resolution refers to the number of pixels that make up the width and the height of your video. It defines how sharp and detailed your video appears on the screen. Some very common resolutions that we have for our videos these days are 1280 by 720, which is HD. These are lower quality, lighter files. Then you have the most common one, which is 1920 by 1080. This is full HD. This is the resolution that we will be working in for the most part. This is standard for YouTube, online content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and most of the social media platforms. Then you have 3840 by 2160. This is 4K Ultra HD. So the higher you go, you get extra detail and extra clarity. And this is better for cropping and zooming and so many other purposes. Think of resolution like a canvas size. The more pixels you have, the more space you get to paint rich details. I'm going to show you a couple examples of different resolutions for clarity. This is a video with full HD resolution. And this is a video that is in 4K. Notice the difference between the two. How the 4K video has much more clarity. It has a lot more detail than the other one, which is why some people choose to work in 4K. Then we're going to talk about frame rate. Frame rate is the number of individual images displayed per second in your video. It affects how smooth or cinematic your video feels. Some very common frame rates these days are 24 frames per second. This is standard for films because it gives that cinematic look. Then you have 30 frames per second. These give you a smoother motion and are often used in TV and online content. One pro tip that I want to give you about frame rates is Instagram prefers 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second. So whenever I post my content, I make sure that it has either of the two frame rates. Then you have 60 frames per second. This is used in sports or when you want to slow down the speed of your footage to show action in slow motion or any other thing in slow motion. If resolution is your canvas, frame rate is how quickly the paint moves across it. Remember, more frames is equal to smoother motion. Let's take a look at some examples. Did you notice that how the video with 60 frames per second had much smoother motion compared to the one with 30 frames per second? Then you have color space. Color space defines the range of colors your video can display. It's like choosing the size of your color palette. Some spaces just have the basics, while others have a rich, wide variety of shades. Some common color spaces these days are Rec 709. This is standard for HDTV and online platforms. Rec 709 is the color space we will be working in throughout the course. Another common color space is DCI P3. This gives a wider color range and is used in digital cinema. Then you have Rec 2020, which is an even broader color space used for HDR workflows. Remember, color space is your paint palette. A small palette limits your color choices. A wide palette? Now you're painting with magic. All right, now it's time to talk about what log mode is. Log footage is your digital film negative. It's designed to preserve detail, not beauty, until you add the beauty to it. By definition, log is a flat looking image format that retains more details in shadows and highlights. The reason it looks gray and washed out is because it's protecting the range of brightness for grading later. When you shoot in log mode, that gives you a bigger dynamic range between the darkest blacks and the brightest whites. There are several types of log modes and several types of cameras that shoot in log. Two of the most common ones are Sony, which has an S-Log, and Canon, which has a C-Log. There is a specific way of converting your log footage into Rec 709, which we discussed in the previous lessons, is one of the most common color spaces when it comes to color grading. Here is an example of a log footage. And here is how it looks when it's color graded. If you look at the color graded version, you'll see how big of a dynamic range log mode gives you in terms of saturation, highlights, shadows, contrast, and everything else. Next up is bit depth. Bit depth determines how many shades of color each pixel can show. More bits is equal to smoother skies, cleaner gradients, and richer grades. An 8-bit video is going to have 256 shades per channel. A 10-bit video is going to have 1024 shades per channel. The three channels that we have are RGB, red, green, and blue. An 8-bit footage can fall apart under heavy grading. You'll see things like posterization, bending, and color clipping. When I color grade 8-bit footage, I see that the colors at some point start shredding. This is what you don't see in a 10-bit video, because 10-bit holds more color info, as we discussed in his definition. So when I'm doing color grading of projects, I prefer color grading 10-bit videos instead of 8-bit. And if you can go over them, RAW is just so much better. It's just that it has a very big file size. Next up is bit rate. Bit rate is equal to how much data is used per second of the video. Even if your footage is in 4K, it can still be trash if the bit rate is too low, because compression kills clarity. A higher bit rate gives you more detail and fewer artifacts. Streaming platforms like Instagram and YouTube often compress aggressively. That's why, in the later part of the course, I will teach you how to export for those platforms wisely. Log, bit depth, and bit rate, these are your brushes. But grading is the art. Now that you know what tools you're holding, let's start painting. Go creating a project from start to finish. So I called my project Color Grading Course Project because this is what I will be working on. And right now I'm on the edit page, but I want to give you a brief understanding of the color page because that is what we will be focusing on for the most part in this course. So I'm going to go to the color page, and I want to familiarize you with a couple of things over here. And don't worry, things are going to seem overwhelming right now, but they are not, because I will take you from beginner to advanced step by step. All I need is for you to have patience and keep following along all of the stuff that I'm teaching you. So, the first thing that we always land on are the color wheels. What do the color wheels do? So it usually starts off over here at the very left portion, and you'll see different things like lift, gamma, gain, offset, all kinds of settings. We will be playing with these settings one by one and whenever they're needed. But just remember that we control a lot of the coloring, highlights, shadows, exposure, contrast, almost everything from around here. Then you have HDR. This is also used for a specific purpose. We'll go into more details later on. Then you have stuff like curves. Here you will find different graphs and different ways of using the curves to manipulate different parts of your project. This is one of the most recent advancements in DaVinci Resolve. This is called Color Slice, and I will be taking you through this in our intermediate to advanced areas of the course. Then you have the qualifier section. This is where I will teach you how to qualify one color and how to manipulate it. Then you have power windows. These are also very important, and I will be taking you through these one by one as we progress through the course. But first of all, I'm going to go to the edit page, and I'm going to bring in a clip over here just to show you some of the other stuff. So here I have a couple of reels in one of my personal folders. I will just click and drag this into the media pool on the edit page. And as soon as I let go of my mouse button, it asks me, change project frame rate. This is because the frame rate of my project is different than that of the video. DaVinci Resolve always gives you this prompt whenever the frame rate of your project is different from the frame rate of the video that you're trying to work on. So I will click change, and now I have my video. I need to click and drag it and bring it on my timeline. And if I move my bar, I can move around in the video. But this is such a small space, so what do? Well, here I have zoom in and zoom out. So if I click on zoom in, it will keep zooming into my timeline. That way, if I take this bar along on a ride, I have more space to drag it to the right or the left or put it wherever I want to. If I hold Option and move my finger to the left on my mouse, it zooms into my timeline. If I keep holding Option and I drag my finger across the magic mouse towards the right, it's going to zoom out of my timeline. Then I will go to my color page. So you see, as soon as I brought in my footage, you see a squarish icon over here. This is what is called a node in DaVinci Resolve. So if you have worked with any of the Adobe softwares, you might be familiar with layers. Nodes are like layers. So if I do something on this node, it's not automatically going to apply to the other nodes. That is the beauty of it. That way, I can control certain parts using only specific nodes. If you right-click with your mouse while you're hovering over the node, it's going to give you a lot of options over here. I usually go to Node Label, and I label my node. This is a very good practice that you need to make a habit of, because sometimes you're not going to remember what you did with each node. So I'm going to call it EXP, basically exposure. So I have this node specifically for exposure. I'm going to go down over here to the color wheels. And right now, just observe what I'm doing. When I increase my offset, it increases the exposure of my footage. Now I want to add a little bit of contrast. So I'll right click over here, go to Add Node, Add Serial. I will call this Contrast. How do you know each node is connected to the other one? Do you see these arrows? When one of them has arrows that are starting from one node and going into another, that means that the nodes are connected. Remember, your nodes are always supposed to be connected to the beginning, amongst each other, and to the end point. That is the only way all of your enhancements and your color grading are going to apply to the footage. If the connection ends at any of these points, your color grading is not going to show. That's why you got to make sure that all of the arrows are running into each other from the beginning through the nodes and to the endpoint. So I'm going to increase the contrast with the contrast slider. The shortcut to create nodes with your keyboard is Option S. Whenever I press Option S, when I'm on a node, it will create another subsequent node for me. Let's say I want to increase the saturation. So I'll call it SAT or saturation. And make sure the red outline is on the node that I want to work on saturation for. I will increase the saturation on my node, and boom, I have all of the effects applied. One very important part that you want to know is when my nodes are moving into each other, the effect keeps on applying from left to right, like that, in this direction, between the beginning and the end point. So for example, if I turn off contrast, do you see it only affects the saturation node? But nothing happens to the exposure node. That is because the effects are running in this direction. If I turn off saturation, nothing happens to the contrast and exposure nodes. But if I turn off exposure, it is going to have an effect on contrast and saturation. So remember, this node carries all of the three effects. It has the saturation, it also has the contrast, look, and then it also has the exposure. So the enhancements that you're going to make to your nodes are going to flow this way. I'm going to give you a couple of more examples. I'm going to press Option S, create another node. Let's say I call this temperature. So make sure that this node is selected. I will go to the temperature slider and maybe increase the temperature a little bit. So do you see only this node has the temperature change effect? It's not affecting any of the previous nodes, but it has the effect of all of the nodes before it. So if I turn off exposure, see what happens to the temperature node? If I turn off contrast, do you see? It also takes out the contrast from the temperature node. If I turn off saturation, look, it also affects the temperature node. But if I turn off the temperature, it does not affect any of these nodes that were before it. And then combined all together, these make up the effect over here. If you want to view it in full screen, you're going to press Command F. And here you're viewing your video in full screen. If you want to go outside of the full view, you simply press Escape, and it brings you back to the page that you were working on. So I hope this lecture helps you give a basic understanding of the color page. See you in the next lecture.